I think it is safe to say that Nintendo is not the same company it once was. Change is inevitable when you come off of your biggest failure to your biggest success. However, the changes to Nintendo's company over the years extend far beyond the business itself. From the loss of two of their most influential executives to the decrease in quality of their games, a lot needs to be examined. The Wii U launched on November 18th, 2012, and to say it didn't do well is an understatement. It is Nintendo's worst-selling home console of all time, just selling under 14 million units worldwide. It kinda put Nintendo in a bit of a pickle given that their previous home console, the Wii, sold over 100 million units worldwide. This era of Nintendo is widely known as the Dark Age, especially 2016, because there were no games released during that year of note, except maybe the Paper Mario game, but it really wasn't anything to scream home about. Anyways, Nintendo was headed by two very important executives at this time. Satoru Iwata, president of Nintendo from 2002 to 2015, and Reggie Fils-Aimé, the president of Nintendo of America from 2006 to 2019. These two executives are widely known for being very, very charismatic and more so tailored to the community rather than the business at hand. Nintendo was going through some very hard times during the Wii U era given that their home console was not selling very well. So to ensure that no layoffs occurred, the Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata slashed his own salary in half to make sure that no one was laid off. With how corporate every company is nowadays, it is still shocking that Iwata did this. It shows a tremendous dedication to the well-being of its employees. Nintendo could have easily laid people off, but chose against it, and that decision is still paying off to this very day. Reggie Fils-Aimé is more well known for his involvement in the Nintendo community. His overall approach to Nintendo fans was very different to what you might see today. He never felt like some big corporate figurehead for a big company, rather he just felt like another gamer. However, Nintendo's leadership today feels a lot more stale and corporate, which is a far cry from what it was years and years ago. Reggie left the company in 2019, and Satoru Iwata sadly passed away in 2015. I feel it is only right to end this segment with this legendary quote by Satoru Iwata.
On my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer. But in my heart, I am a gamer.
The Nintendo community was a lot more united during the Wii U era, and to really put an emphasis on that is Nintendo's approach to online gaming in general. During the Wii U, it was completely free under the Nintendo Network ID, but with the Nintendo Switch, they've actually started paying or made it a paid service, so it's about $20 per year USD, and that is a very divisive issue because when you're paying for something that once was free, you better offer something that's a little bit, it basically give an incentive to actually pay for it. And Nintendo's response was to give us a bunch of old school Nintendo NES games and later on SNES games, but we all remember how completely barren the entire system was. Nintendo also likes to do this thing where they shut down fan projects. There was a few years ago where there was an online Super Smash Bros. Melee tournament that Nintendo actually shut down because it was using unofficial hardware to actually connect to online. So instead of sponsoring it or just leaving it alone, Nintendo decided to completely shut it down, which is not a good look for a company that should all intents and purposes be engaging with their community. Another contentious subject is the implementation of My Nintendo after the closure of Club Nintendo. And if you don't know what Club Nintendo was, whenever you opened a Wii U or a Wii game, or even 3DS or DS games, you get a code for a Club Nintendo thing that you put into the website, and you can redeem said points to buy actual little items that they implemented onto their website. And it started off with physical rewards and even some digital rewards, but Nintendo ended up shutting down the service after quietly getting rid of all of the cool stuff and just kind of transitioning more into digital rewards, and now it's just not even a thing anymore. Nintendo's actual sequel to Club Nintendo was My Nintendo, which is a far cry of a surface or as a service compared to Club Nintendo. The only thing with My Nintendo that's worth doing are the gold points, which they have since taken away, but basically how that system worked is you would basically earn all these gold points, and you would be able to turn those into, basically each gold point was worth 1 cent. And what Nintendo did was, if you were buying a digital game on the eShop, you would be able to redeem those points to save money on your digital games. They have since gotten rid of it, and it will not be coming back for the Switch 2. But this is a massive, massive issue that Nintendo just decided to just get rid of this. And now there's no point in redeeming these points in the beginning. Nintendo's community was very united on the front of the Nintendo 3DS price, which started out at $270 US, which was very, very expensive for an early system, or for a handheld system of that size. And it actually got to the point where Nintendo had to reduce the price because of all of the backlash. That is a massive, massive thing that they did, and probably would not do today, and we will talk about the Switch 2 later on in this video. But Nintendo ended up having to reduce the price about 5 months after the console released, simply because no one was buying the thing. It was genuinely like a wasteland. The launch lineup was poor. I think that we had like Pilot Wings as the main title, not even a Mario Kart, not even a Mario game in general. It was just a waste. And the only thing that Nintendo did to actually remedy the people that actually bought the console at its original $270 price tag was just giving them a bunch of classic games that they could buy already on the Wii U. Absolutely ridiculous. Both Iwata and Reggie Fils-Aimé helped unite the community under the hard times of the 3DS and Wii U. But now, as Nintendo's kind of grown to be more successful with the Switch, and eventually the Switch 2, it has definitely divided the community a lot more, as Nintendo has pivoted away from being reliant on these community members to just being more corporate now, because they are successful enough to, not really listen to their hardcore fans. And that has genuinely seen a massive decrease in the quality of just games in general. Everything just seems to be a contentious issue now, as we will highlight later. But yeah, Nintendo's community is certainly more divided now than it was ever before. I made a video similar to this about 3 years ago, where I also had the same point of Nintendo being very almost lazy with their games. And one of the biggest shining examples of this is the release of Nintendo Switch Sports, which to this very day has had very minimal updates and came out, baked as it was. There was like 5-6 sports, when the game previous to this had over 20 with Wii Sports Resort. And the game has just been a barren wasteland, to the point where the whole point of it was their cosmetics, the costumes that you unlock by playing the mandatory online mode. And they've actually they had like a year or two of costumes, and they are now cycling through them. So there is absolutely no new content being added to the game as of now. One of the biggest differences between Nintendo of the Wii U era and Nintendo of the Switch era is how the Year of Luigi and Mario's 30th anniversary was handled. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, back in 2013, Nintendo hosted a Year of Luigi, where they basically released a bunch of different spin-offs featuring Luigi, and that specific creativity has not been seen at all, and has not been seen since. And what Nintendo did was they basically made a whole new game, a whole new 2D Mario game based on Luigi. It was added DLC for $20. It was a whole new game for $20. That is something Nintendo has not done in many, many, many years. And if we fast forward to 2020, where Mario had his 30th anniversary, Nintendo released a game called Mario 3D All-Stars, an $80, 60 USD, full-price game, where it included half-baked emulated versions of old Mario games, of Mario 64, of Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy. For the first time ever, Mario Sunshine was actually re-released, and it was just completely ridiculous. There was actually a whole scandal where Nintendo actually got caught using these emulated ports, despite being so against emulation with their company model. They just completely ripped them and put them in this game, and it came across as very just lazy. And that's just kind of what Nintendo has been doing for the past however many years. And 2017 and 2018 were great years. It really set the Switch up for success, and after Nintendo kind of realized that the direction of the Switch was only gonna go up, they never looked back, and they started seeing what they could get away with their games. With Switch Sports, they just completely, they did 4 or 5 sports, and it was completely lazy. With Mario Tennis Aces, they had a few characters at launch, and then just completely just added them in the future. With Mario Strikers Battle League, people were hyped for it, but Nintendo killed the hype by excluding certain characters and adding them through free updates. This is a common model with Nintendo, is they take current games and they just update them as time goes on after they're already dead. Games are popular at launch, and you need to really emphasize that. And with the OG Switch, it would not have been as popular as it is right now if there wasn't a strong launch lineup. You don't just add stuff in between. You've got to make a strong first impression, and it's the same thing with games. If the game isn't finished, don't publish it until it is. It doesn't get any more simple than that. And while we're on the topic of just lazy games in general, Nintendo's motto and their biggest moneymaker are the Wii U ports. And I love the Wii U ports, of course, they're great, but it seems that the ports are overshadowing a bunch of new games. Like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best-selling Switch game to date. That is, to me, that is huge, but it's also a problem. It tells Nintendo that ports are the way to go, and it's not like Nintendo's adding that much in general. And we will get to the Switch 2 in the next segment, but a lot of this generation was built off of ports, and not saying that the Wii U had it any better. They had Wind Waker, they had Twilight Princess HD, a mountain of other ports, but we could at least see a level of effort where Nintendo remastered the graphics from the ground up. It was a completely different experience. With the Switch, for Mario Bros. U Deluxe, for example, you got a few new characters, and that's it. We were even wondering if they were going to include the Luigi U DLC. They actually took out a character, I think it was the Blue Toad, that they ended up taking out, making the game worse than the Wii U version. If you want to play 4 players without someone having a very, very big advantage. It's ridiculous, and Nintendo's motto has kind of went from quality to quantity. They're trying to release as much as possible while also saving as many financial resources as possible, and it's just made the games look lazy. So the making of this video has kind of been in between the Switch 2's reveal, and I wanted to wait and kind of include this segment to see how Nintendo does, and it has been more of the same over the past few years compared to now, where Nintendo has been very bold in their pricing. A lot of their decision making seems to be more about money rather than about the, consumer satisfaction or, appeasing their customers, because the Switch 2's price was not revealed in the presentation talking about the console. With the original Switch, they announced that it was $300 in the presentation. Nintendo intentionally did not include the price of the Switch 2 because they knew it would make everyone mad. And mad it did, because in the Nintendo Treehouse live streams where they were showcasing a bunch of the new Switch 2 games that were revealed, the chat was just non-stop, lower the price, lower the price. And I cannot blame them. It has been a bumpy ride these past few years with Nintendo, as they've just completely fallen off the face of the map with the community, where they were actually maintaining ties with them during the Wii U era. It's just completely gone to crap. And we don't even have to talk about tariffs, bro. It has been ridiculous what's been going on. And one thing that Nintendo did in response to said tariffs was they kept the price of the console and the games the same, but they increased the prices of the actual accessories. So the Pro Controller, the wrist straps, and whatnot, all of that increased. But Nintendo didn't announce that on their Twitter account with 14 million followers. Instead, they just kind of dropped it on their website with the headline, Nintendo maintains the original price of Switch 2, which is just so indicative of what Nintendo has become over the past few years, which is just a soulless, greedy corporation that used to be spearheaded by, charismatic leaders like Satoru Iwata and Reggie Fils-Aimé, to now where it's just been a mess, to the point where Nintendo has actually announced a new game called Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. And I think this example illustrates perfectly how far Nintendo has fallen with the community, because this is a $10 pack-in game. It's not a pack-in game. It's available on the eShop, the digital storefront that houses every single Nintendo digital game. Instead of having it pre-installed, like every other Nintendo console, or having it at least with a pack-in, Nintendo has decided to charge an extra $10 on top of this. And it is widely agreed upon Nintendo fans that this is just a greedy money-making move. It makes no sense for you to have a tech demo not built in. And a prime example, Astro's Playworld for the PlayStation 5 came pre-installed on the PlayStation 5. It won Game of the Year. It won Game of the Year because it was free, readily accessible, and it's not like Nintendo didn't know this. One of the best-selling games of all time, Wii Sports, was a pack-in game for the Wii. And Nintendo, some executives, I know Reggie recently talked about how he had to fight for Nintendo to actually make Wii Sports a pack-in title. What happens to the Wii if the Wii Sports is not a pack-in title? What is the point? You're gonna be spending $700 over here in Canada to buy this console, and you're coming home, and then you realize, I don't have anything to show. I don't have anything to show my friends what this console does. Oh wait, yes you do. You have to spend an extra $10. So on top of the $700, you have to spend another $10. And if it was an extra $40 for this game, then at least Nintendo put effort into this. At least Nintendo put effort to the point where it warrants that $40 price tag. Nah, it's a $10 increase. We'd rather it just be free or something like that. It's so indicative of what Nintendo has just become, where they, instead of slashing salaries to make sure people aren't laid off, they're charging $10 for a pack-in game. And that's just what Nintendo's become. And the thing that has really driven the most amount of criticism is the price tag on Mario Kart World, which is the launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2. It is $80. $80 USD. It used to be $80 Canadian, but now it is going to cost an extra $30 over here. And we had Nintendo announced in the presentation, the original Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, that they would have a Mario Kart World Direct where they would clarify why this game was $80, and they would hopefully show off some stuff that would warrant this such a price tag. And if you're wondering, other Switch 2 games are $70. Donkey Kong Bonanza is a $70 game, not $80. So what makes Mario Kart World so special? They did a 15-minute presentation where it showed nothing other than stuff that was gonna be known when the game came out. Nothing new, nothing to justify said price tag. Nintendo has really fallen out of touch with the community. It is a far cry from what they were back during the Wii U era when they needed those hardcore fans the most. And they have completely, in my opinion, as someone who experienced both eras, they have abandoned their core consumers, and it is a shame to watch. As the Switch 1 era winds down, a new one begins with the Switch 2, and Nintendo has a lot of work to do, considering they are now making games in 4K that are more demanding of their hardware. And if this hardware is not up to snuff with the competition, then the Switch 2 is going to have a very rough life cycle. And just in terms of the community, they just need to bring some of that passion back. Some of that drive where Nintendo, instead of shutting down tournaments, maybe engage with more of them, maybe sponsor some of them, sponsor some of the ones that are going to be made of your new games as well. Maybe when a new Smash Brothers comes out, maybe make or organize tournaments yourself. And that was one of the big things when Ultimate came out, was when they actually held an invitational before the game even released, which just built even more hype behind it. There were good moments during the Switch 1 era where Nintendo showed a lot of care towards their community, but it feels more like a business rather than a company that people can genuinely rally behind and just be proud of. And as a Nintendo fan, I sincerely hope this changes. Thank you everyone so very much for watching this video. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out, everybody.